do this trash can so I got enough room. Don't you feel awesome when your head, like...
I do feel awesome.
Yes. We're going to talk about sweaty balls.
Sweaty balls? What kind of cookies do you like to make? It does have a little bit of an NPR feel to it.
It does, doesn't it?
I like it.
And then you drop it on them and they're like, oh, I wasn't expecting that. All right, you hear yourself, I hear you. You sound good.
Yep.
You sound great.
You too.
All right, ready? We're going to do yours today too, right?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. Is that good? Are you too loud?
No, I was turning mine up.
All right.
I like to hear myself.
Yeah, I know. See, shit like that. Like, I just want to rip like that. Okay. All right, here we go. What is good, ladies and gentlemen? It is me, Paul J. Long, welcoming you to the Fundamism podcast. As always, the podcast where we task individuals to bring more joy, fun, and fulfillment in their life. And we do so by introducing fun guests. Guests that are bringing not only fun in their own personal life, but into the life of others. And so I'm excited to introduce today's guest because he's an individual that's been super impactful in my life. But before we do that, I would be remiss if we didn't shout out our amazing sponsor, Charlie Hustle, doing big things in the Kansas City community. You don't have to reside in Kansas City to benefit from their amazing threads. Go to charliehustle.com if you want to learn more. I promise you, you will not be disappointed. If you want to look as awesome as this guy, really, I'm a humble individual. I'm just joking, but I do have a Charlie Hustle shirt on, repping KC.
Dig it.
Hey, without further ado, I'd like to introduce my guest today, Adam Carroll. What's good, buddy?
Hey, Paul. All sorts of good things today. The fact that you brought 10 of your associates in here to set up the studio is kind of amazing.
Dave, Stan, Gretchen. What's up, Gretchen? It's good to see you, sister. You're doing great. How do we all fit in that Nissan of mine?
It's amazing.
Ring, ding, 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 ding,
It's
ding,
like
ding.
a clown car.
That's exactly right. Well, so it's Adam Carroll with 2 R's, 2 L's, and 8 O's, right? It's like
That's right.
Adam Carroll. So, Adam, I like to start every single podcast. We like to start every podcast with one question. What do you do for fun, buddy?
I like to play games. We like to play games in our family. So there's a lot of ball games, board games, dice games, card games. We play a lot. Matter of fact, just this morning, my son got up at 6:30 and said, "Can we go to the Y and shoot hoops?" So we played around the world. We played pig. It was a good day.
That's awesome. And you're walking around like you're still spry.
Hey, man.
You got it like that. I see you watch what you eat. You're a fit individual. I mean, you work out every day, right?
I am a 26-year-old, 43-year-old.
I feel you. I have the knees of an 85-year-old man, though. So, extremely family-oriented. You're one of the most fun people that I've ever met. Like,
Thanks,
I have
bro.
been looking forward to this interview for months. We've been talking about getting this on the calendar. You, of course, have your own podcast. What's that podcast called?
It is called the Build a Bigger Life podcast.
And it kind of goes hand in hand. It's a perfect complement to Fundamism, and I think that's why we get along so well. Because you thrive in an environment that's bringing joy to others. And I think as a result of that, it brings joy to you. Am I way off?
Totally. No, that's it. I love impact. I think whatever I do, I need to be feeling that there is an impact in that. And so the whole Build a Bigger Life podcast and the Build a Bigger Life movement is about enjoying the life that we have to live. Like, I believe we are all life architects. We get to decide what our life is like. And I feel somewhat, not sorry, that's not the word I'm looking for, but I feel like those that aren't living that way, it is my job to light a fire under them to say, listen, why are you doing this? Why are you living in a way that doesn't light you up? It should, right?
Well, and I think that's, again, one of the common threads that you and I have between one another. There's a lot of folks out there that hear what you're saying right now, and they're like, yes, that's what I want. Like, I want to be as upbeat and optimistic as Adam Carroll, and I want to feel more in control of my life. So what do you say, and how do you help those that don't know what that looks like?
Well, the premise of Build a Bigger Life started in my work in financial literacy, financial education, because the whole idea was build a bigger life, not a bigger lifestyle. I know a lot of people that build a massive lifestyle, but then their life is very, very small because they have to work constantly and they're constantly under stress about money and paying bills. And my whole deal was, well, what if you could build a really big life doing everything you've wanted to do? Just make sure the lifestyle doesn't get out of control.
Sure.
And so it started in money, and then I started realizing that the people who build a bigger life are the ones who are living according to their values. They're people who tend to make money irrelevant. Like it's not a primary focus for them. It's a function. It happens. So I teach people how to do that. But by and large, the number one thing that I tell people to do is when you were a kid, or even 5 years, 10 years ago, and you thought about what life should be like, why are you not living that way? What changed, or what needs to change in order for you to get there? And I look back at, I've got a bookshelf full of journals that I've done through the years. And as I go back, almost everything that I've written about has happened. Because I look at it and go, well, this is what I want, and I'm going to go after it and get it. And that's how I want to live my life. Yeah.
That's crazy. So, I mean, obviously that's something very tactical that people they can do right now. They can incorporate now. And I think that what they say the difference between goals and dreams are like writing them down and making them happen.
Writing them down, making a plan, sticking to it. I think the other thing, Paul, is the level of belief that you have in whatever that goal or dream is. I'm a big believer in the law of attraction, and that, what we think about, we bring about.
Yes.
I think it was Earl Nightingale, The Strangest Secret, right? That you become what you think about most of the time.
Yeah.
And my dad always said if that were true, by the time I was 15, I'd have been an 18-year-old girl. But think about that one.
I am actually.
Yeah.
I'm really confused. I'd like to go down multiple rabbit holes.
Yes. And so I believe in the law of attraction. I think that what we think about, we bring about. But I think it is the power of belief in what we want that will really get you there.
Yes.
So if someone says, I'll give you a good example. I had this brainchild several years ago that I want to spend an extended period of time in Italy with my family. And I wanted to rent a villa on the Amalfi Coast and live like an Italian for a month, as an example. And people were like, oh, that's crazy. How will you get away for a month? And can your wife get out of her job for a month? And won't the kids have activities and all that stuff? But deep down, I had this belief that it will happen. There is no question we're going to go do this. And so we just about 2 weeks ago booked our trip over. We're staying in Sorrento, Italy. We'll be there almost the entire month of June.
What?
And it happened because my belief level was so high that I started mapping out, well, how would I do it? Because it's going to happen. I just need to figure out how it's going to happen. So we paid $120 for airline tickets over there because of miles. We'll convert miles, points back over to miles on the way back. We're staying in a beautiful Airbnb for a good solid 2 to 3 weeks, and then my daughter wants to see Paris, so we'll go up there. But it is going to be this marathon trip where it's family and it's fun, and it's just like we're throwing caution and care to the wind and going and doing this thing.
That's amazing and admirable. There's a lot of folks that wouldn't be able to do that. And, I'm a huge believer in energy. We talk about this a lot.
Yeah.
And, both positive and negative. What I find interesting is there's often times where you're having a bad day and you expect as time progresses and the day gets crappier and crappier that more bad things are going to happen to you.
Right.
And so I had a gentleman recently approach me in the news recently. I'm a huge Kansas City Chiefs fan, if you didn't know or couldn't tell. And we had a hiccup recently. Well, we didn't have a hiccup. There was a gentleman on our team by the name of Kareem Hunt that he got into a domestic violence situation.
Yep.
And obviously didn't carry himself the right way. Made terrible decisions, and not just one time. I mean, this is a repetitive behavior, and clearly he needs help. But the Chiefs are having a bang-up season, and everybody's excited. We haven't experienced this in a long time, and there's hope for the first time in a long time. And so this gentleman calls me on Friday after the news comes out, a couple Fridays ago, that Kareem Hunt was let go from the team. And he says, "Did you hear the news?" And I go, "Are you talking about Kareem Hunt?" He says, "Yeah. It's already been a shit week. I mean, what's one more thing, right? It just validates it all." And I said, "Dude, like this guy beating a woman has nothing to do with you. Like this has nothing to do with your life or the things that have happened to you this week.
Right.
All you're doing is validating your mindset."
No doubt.
And so the reason why I bring up that story is because I find you a fascinating specimen of an individual that typically sees things as something that could potentially happen if you make it happen.
Mm-hmm.
And it's easy for us to look at things and say, it's been a shit week, so shit things are going to happen.
Yeah.
But you've always been an individual since the moment that I met you that saw something and said, we could make something out of that.
Yeah.
Is that something innate in you, or is that something that you've learned over time?
It's a good question, Paul. I think.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. You ask really good questions.
Thanks. I should start.
You're a great conversationalist. Do you know that? Has anyone ever told you that before?
They've said a conversationist.
A conversationist.
They've said a conservationist.
You're a great conservationist too.
Keep going. Sorry.
Just earlier today, you were asking me if I had recycled toilet paper. I think
that's exactly right. Yeah.
And I said
it works
sure,
great, but it smells like crap. It's weird.
So the question, what was the question?
The question is your mindset, like your ability to make something out of things, your willingness to constantly just be feeding off of positive energy. Is that innate, or is that something that's come to you over time?
Well, when I was a kid, my dad pulled this nasty trick on us that if we were to complain about something, he would then say, I need to know 3 great things about that same thing.
Yes.
So he would flip the script on us right away. And what over time I realized he was doing was helping us exercise the ability to see the positive as well as the negative right away.
Right.
Because we tend, as a society, to immediately jump to the negative. And unfortunately, we're in a time period now where like great division, and it's sort of this side against that side.
Yep.
And even in the positives, there can be negatives. Something great can happen and automatically it's negative, right? And so I find that you could either let that, seed your mind with negativity, or you can turn around and see what the positives are. So that was one. I think my dad did that to me. Number 2 is I went through 3 weeks of training with Jack Canfield, who is the author of co-author of Chicken Soup for the Soul, and he wrote the Success Principles. Yeah, shout out to Jack. And one of the things that Jack said, and it's one of the I think it's the very first success principle, is you are 100% responsible for your life. And so when I hear people, bitching and moaning about other people, I'm like, okay, but what about you? What are you doing? Yes, that is how they are. But a good friend of mine who's a PhD in psychology told me one time that behavior is multifaceted, multi-causal, and multidimensional.
That sounds super smart and way above.
Doesn't it?
Yeah.
I know, I memorized it just so I could sound smart to say it. But when he said it, I'm like, yeah, we have no idea why people act the way they do. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like you could have just been in a terrible scooter accident.
That's exactly right.
Right?
I actually sent you a photo.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
It was a great shot too.
Thanks.
Yes, and that could make you act differently because you just had this interaction, or maybe it was a negative interaction with your wife, or your son came in and punched you square in the face this morning.
Right.
And
Doyle rules.
Yeah. Doyle rules. Yeah. So I think that we have to number 1 take a step back and go, what did my internal dialogue just say about that thing that happened, and then how do I turn this and make it funny? I think the third, can I give a third answer?
Dude, this is your show.
So, is it really?
I mean, today.
Okay. I was going to say, you're
for the next
gifting me Fundamism.
For the next 22 minutes.
Love it. So the other thing is, I sold books door to door during the summer in college.
Was it the summer of '69?
It was not. No, I'm not that old. Yeah, I was not around at that summer. It was the summer of 93.
Okay.
92, 93. And 92 and 93.
Okay.
So the first summer, I was in Rancho Cucamonga, California. You would have a ton of fun there.
Why?
Because you'd probably go around being like, Cucamonga!
Yeah, that's right. I was thinking immediately Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yeah.
Like I was immediately thinking my college.
Cowabunga.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. So I was in Rancho Cucamonga my first summer. The second summer, I was in Cadillac, Michigan. Now, no disrespect to the folks in Cadillac, Michigan, but in the part where I was, the term toothbrush was very literal.
Oh,
do you know what I'm saying?
Because they only have one tooth.
Yes.
Toofus.
Yes.
Okay.
And so...
that's sad. I hope, just so you guys know, this is a guest on the Fundamism podcast. Like, I respect Cadillac, Michigan. Like, I don't have that experience, so...
It's a great place.
I
I was
But,
in.
I mean, what about Earl, though? What about Earl that's listening to this right now and feels disrespected because you're talking about his toofus?
It's true. Well, Earl bought books for me, so
Okay, respect to Earl. So maybe he's fixed it.
He could have fixed it.
That's right.
So when I did this, the folks who hired us to do this, which is called Southwestern Publishing, gave us all a book, and the book was called The Greatest Salesman in the World by Og Mandino. You've read it?
Yes.
Yes. And do you remember what scroll 5 was?
No, I don't remember what I did 5 minutes ago.
Okay.
What are we doing now?
Are you on drugs? Then give me some. So the thing that happened, they gave us this book, The Greatest Salesman in the World, and one of the scrolls in The Greatest Salesman in the World says, "Today I will laugh at the world." And that one phrase for me carried me through the whole summer. We are the only species that can laugh at itself. And if we're not laughing at ourselves and our experience, then we're probably crying in our pillow. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So that whole idea of today I will laugh at the world, I find also all manner of things funny. That probably other people are like, why are you laughing at that? I just find it humorous.
Yes.
You know? Like if someone is flipping me off on the road, I know you said a swear word a little bit ago.
Yeah.
Is that okay on this?
Yeah, PG-13.
Okay. So I was in Michigan again, not Cadillac. I was in Detroit.
But were you in a Cadillac?
I was not in a Cadillac. I was in a GM.
Okay.
But I pulled up to a stoplight. As I am wont to do, I turned and looked to my left, and the woman to my left looks over at me like I had just insulted her child.
Because you looked at her.
Because I looked at her, and she goes, "What the are you looking at?" And I started laughing because I was like, I literally just turned my head to look at you.
What?
And so that actually carried me forward for quite some time because, that stuff doesn't happen all the time.
Yes.
Can I tell you another one?
All of them?
Yes. So you're a traveler.
Yes.
What is your feeling about TSA and how, just in general?
It seems generally speaking, that the bulk of them are somewhat unhappy, and I'll try to riff with them or whatnot. Typically, they don't have it. Some super happy, some aren't. But I did have a really awesome experience recently.
Yes.
Can I tell one?
Please, you tell one, and then I'll tell mine.
So the lady behind, she's checking the 3D and all that stuff.
Yeah.
She's the X-ray, right? So she's checking the bags, and gentleman that's doing the X-ray machine, right? And you walk through. They're kind of riffing back and forth, and I hear the guy say something to the extent of, "Okay, G." She's like, "I got G," and he's like, "Yeah, you got G." And so what they were doing was they were going through the alphabet, and they would have to work in a word seamlessly into a conversation with each other or with their, the folks that they were serving or whatever it may be, casually into conversation. And I thought, yes, that's amazing. Like TSA's get a bad rap. Like these guys, they got it better than most, right? Because we're not doing that, or some aren't. So, but what's yours?
They made a game of it.
They made a game. They threw them dice, like you said earlier.
So I flew through Philadelphia not too long ago, and have you ever been
to Philadelphia?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So it's known as what? The city of
love,
brotherly love, right? Yeah. There was not a lot of brotherly love in the Philly airport at 5:30 in the morning.
Do you just want to say, what are you so mad at?
Yeah, a little bit.
I want to say that all the time.
But then people are like, "Why are you so happy?" So it's I take it both
Perspective.
ways. But when I walked in, the more you know. Star flash. So when I walked into the Philly airport, I thought, you know what? Today's gonna be fun. Like I'm gonna make today fun no matter what. So whatever happens is all good because I'm in the city of brotherly love. There was not a lot of brotherly love that morning. So I get to the TSA agent, and he's a particularly kind of stiff, automaton kind of guy. Like he's very intent on his job. And I was wearing a pair of pants that has a zipper in the back pocket, and I knew it was going to trigger the alarm. And I walked through, and he says to me, "Sir, you have an anomaly in your buttocks area."
Thank you for noticing.
So my comment immediately, first a huge smile comes across my face because I'm like, this guy has no idea who he's messing with today. And I said, "Do you think it's serious?" couple of people nearby are laughing. He's not. He's serious. He's like, I'm going to have to wand you, sir. And I said, yeah, knock yourself out. Go for it. And, I assumed the position. And he says, well, do you want it done here or in private? And I had this moment of pause. And I was like, kind of waiting for effect.
Yes.
And I said, what kind of wand is it? And again, all of his coworkers laughing. He's not. He's very serious. I had a good laugh with the other people. This guy, well, he wouldn't play along.
No.
And I find that people who aren't ready to play along, they're probably pretty mad about other stuff.
Yeah.
And I give them
They're mad at their dad.
What's that?
They're mad at their dad.
They're mad at their dad.
Yeah.
Yeah. They didn't get the Cabbage Patch doll for Christmas that year, or whatever it is, right?
Or they're not getting enough brotherly love.
That could be it too.
Well, it's interesting because, the story that you told about your father, I mean, I think it relates to this story as well. And, one of the things that I want to try to do a better job of on these podcasts, I want them to be entertaining. You mentioned laughter earlier.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, I told you this offline, but somebody came up to me at the gym the other day and they said, you know what I love about your podcast? And I was like, what? I love it when you laugh. Like, it's not every day that you just get to hear people laugh like that, and it's so contagious.
Yeah.
And so I appreciate that when you not only laugh at yourself, but you create an environment for others to laugh, which is exactly what you did for that TSA.
Totally.
Even though he wasn't feeling it.
He was not feeling it.
But his peers were.
Yes.
And so, never judge a book and all that jazz. You never know what impact you played on these coworkers of his.
Right.
He could have been going through the struggle. But I think back to the story that you told with your father, and specifically when you looked at the darker side of things, and he said, "What are the 3 positive things out of that?" I've said this before on a previous podcast, but I like to ask my daughter regularly. She's 5 years old. Like, what's the best thing that's happened to you today?
Yeah.
And I would think about that TSA as he's going through it. Obviously, it's very serious about this business.
Oh, very serious.
And so you wrap up, and clearly he wasn't feeling your vibe, but so you play along with him, and finally you say, hey, thank you for your service. Hey, what's the best thing that's happened to you today? And just see what his response is. He's either going to buy in or he's not.
Yeah.
But I find that interesting dialogue happens after that question. For my 5-year-old daughter, typically it takes some thought. Every now and again she'll say, I don't know. Some days she'll say, like, laying here with you, Dad. And of course that brings a tear to my eye. Sometimes now she's going through kindergarten, so she's super excited every day. It's like Christmas. So she's like, oh, well, me and May, we did this art project and it was super awesome. And we had a skate party on Monday and I already got my stamp for it. And she's over the top excited, right? And so I find this unique dynamic that can take place when you force people through your line of questioning, which you do masterfully, to think about something better than where they currently are.
Yeah.
And your line of, I want to say line of questioning, but it's more a mindset of curiosity. Is that something that you're deliberately doing? Are you cognizant of what you're doing, or are you just a generally curious person?
Well, I think there's a level of curiosity that I have innately. I've always been kind of a curious guy, but I think there is, you wrote about it in your book, and we had talked about it, I think, in the planning process, about being curious, not furious.
Yes.
And I find that people jump to being furious so often that if they just paused and were a little bit curious ahead of time, you wouldn't have that reaction. And the challenge is that, like, being furious takes you down this negative downward spiral, whereas being curious takes you on this upward spiral where you can, all sorts of cool things can happen when you're curious, but a whole bunch of negative shit can happen when you're furious.
That's exactly right.
And so I would just as soon create upward spirals as downward spirals. So I think I'm more attuned to asking questions and probing, because I think that whole idea that what most people think is so just isn't so.
Sure.
It's just their perspective or their perception of what is so.
Well, so first of all, just to backtrack a little bit, shout out to you who just shouted out the book, but in turn really shouted himself out, because in that chapter of the book, I actually give Adam Carroll, a gentleman that I look up to, as stated in the book.
Did you give me credit?
Of course I did.
I love you,
Did
man.
you
Thank
read
you.
the book?
Twice. 12 times.
Yeah, you almost said toilet. So was it on the toilet when you?
It's bathroom reading.
It is.
Now.
It's a very quick read.
It
so
is.
if you're reading a verse, like
Sit down twice.
Sit down twice. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
But most importantly, it provides very tactical things for you to do at the end. It's like a workbook at the end. And the reason why I bring that up is because if you're tuning in, I said this earlier, one of the things that I'm challenging myself to do on this podcast is I want folks to walk away with something that they could do that's gonna change perspective or bring more joy, whatever it may be. And you mentioned one of them, you know, asking somebody what's the best thing that's happened to you today, or what's 3 things that are positive about this thing that you're looking at negatively.
Yep.
So that's one thing that you could all do right now with a coworker, with your family member, whatever it may be. You know, I told a story before on a podcast, I believe. I never remember whether this was a conversation I had with you or whether it was a conversation I had in front of a group or on a podcast, whatever it may be. But I remember being in a highly stressful call center environment. And, you know, the water cooler talk where people will come to you. Did you hear what Adam's doing? I can't believe it. And so people would come up to me and they would ask me questions about other people. And I don't like to engage in that stuff. I mean, I'm victim from time to time.
Sure.
Fall victim from time to time. But nevertheless, when people would come up to me and they'd say that, you know, did you hear about Adam? I'd be like, hey, speaking of Adam, what's the best thing that's happened to you today? And they would be so confused. What the hell does that have to do with Adam? And I'd be like, it doesn't have anything to do with Adam. I don't care about that. I want to know what's good with you. And so my point is that's something that you could all easily do and would bring more joy to your life. But thinking about your curiosity and asking questions, what can you give somebody that would like to take more of a curious approach to folks in their work and personal life?
So I would issue a challenge. And the challenge that I would issue is this. When someone is talking about whatever's going on with them, what is the natural inclination?
Go negative.
Or if they're saying, oh, this problem and this problem, this problem.
Make it about yourself.
You'd make it about yourself and you'd solve it.
Basically, you're saying I'm wrong to every answer.
No, sorry. That's,
just tell me what you want me to say.
I'm trying to telepath where I'm going with this. We tend to be solvers, right? We want to fix everybody's problem. And people don't want their problems fixed.
That's true.
They don't. They want to vent and they want to solve their own problems. And so I think that whole idea, the challenge that I'm going to issue is this. The idea that when someone says something to you, if you ask them enough questions, they'll come up with their own answer. And they'll thank you profusely because you helped them come up with a solution. Whereas if you're like, well, I don't know why you don't just do this. They're going to be like, what does Paul know about my situation?
Right? Yeah.
And so, you know, with my kids as an example, they'll come home and my son's got a couple kids at school that are his you know, arch nemesis because they're really talented at basketball. Yeah. They're magnetos.
Is it Magneto or Magneto?
I think it's Magneto.
I appreciate you holding me accountable.
Yeah, but I said Magneto first.
You just repeated me. Which is the inclination because you don't want to make me look bad.
That's true.
But your son has several arch nemesis.
He does.
Is it nemesis or nemesis?
I think it's nemesis.
Okay, fair enough.
It's like testes.
Okay, 1, 2.
So his nemesis, and there's only 1 or 2 of them, but they're really good at basketball. So they jaw him and they trash talk each other a little bit. And he gets really upset by that because humility is something we really hammer on at home. And he's kind of, it triggers him because they're not humble. And I'm like, well, why do you think that is, buddy? And so he'll talk through things and, oh, well, he got on me about going to the Y for only 30 minutes when his sessions are 2.5 hours. And I said, well, why do you think that is? Why do you think he said that? And he's like, well, I don't know. He said, I'll just think about it for a minute. Why do you think he would say something like that? Well, he's trying to one-up me. And I said, well, why do you think he's trying to one-up you? Well, I don't know. Maybe he's just trying to be better than me. I go, well, if he's trying to be better than you, what might he be afraid of? That he's not better than me. And I was like, wow, that's kind of interesting, isn't it? Yeah. He came up with it. I didn't come up with that.
Sure. It's like a matrix.
I led him there a little bit.
Sure.
But what I wanted to know is, don't take what somebody says at face value. Take some stock in why they might be saying it. You know, what is the thought process behind whatever the statement is? Typically, it's like, oh, I'm going to chime in on this conversation because I need to feel important.
Yes,
right?
Absolutely.
If we know that about people, let them do that. Let them feel important and then move on. But don't get upset about it.
I think so. that same scenario, that example can relate to so many different things. I think the most valuable leadership attribute that anybody can have is the ability to ask questions and allow others to self-discover. And it's the thing that we spend the least amount of time on in development, right?
Yep.
And so if you think about leadership, oftentimes in organizations, whether it's a small to mid-sized business or a Fortune 5 company, we often don't take the time to develop people the right way. And we say, well, Adam, like, if you want to sell more widgets, bro, here's what you got to do. And you tell them, right?
Yep.
But the great leaders, what they do is they embody what you just provided an example for with your son.
Yeah.
They ask questions and they allow folks to self-discover, because nobody likes their ideas better or more
than themselves, yes,
right?
Totally.
And so if you have the ability, or if you're conscious enough to lead people down a path like you did with your son, to land on a decision that you want them to land on anyway, and you could do it in a manner that allows them to feel like they did it themselves, then you're going to be more powerful as a father, as a mother, as a employee, as a boss, whatever it may be, in all things that you do. And so I love that challenge. So the challenge today, amongst many other things,
Other things.
my buddy Buttweed.
Well, you English.
I meant to say this is my brusha from another maja. But the challenge, outside of just asking that question, what's the best thing that's happened to you today, or how do you see this negative thing in 3 positive lights, right?
Yeah.
How do you respond with more questions? So somebody comes to you and they present you with something. Force yourself. I say we put a number on it. What's a good?
I think they ought to ask at least 4 questions.
At least 4 questions. Comment in the YouTube comments below, or hit me up on Facebook, Twitter, with any comments of your questions that you asked or the experience that you had. I'd love to hear what's going on and how people responded to you. Most importantly, I'd love to hear your success. Noise! Did you say noise?
I said noise.
It's Noice. So, who the hell are you? Like, we're now 30 minutes in. Nobody knows what you do. Nobody knows how we connected. And so just a brief story. I admire you a great deal, and you're very humble, but obviously every time I talk to you, I feed your ego.
You do. Thank you.
And I'm not the only one. I mean, you have that personality where you come into a room and everybody's like, yes, I need more of that in my life. And as a result, I find that if I was in your shoes, I'd constantly be trying to balance that. Like, how do you say no more?
Yeah. And
so I'm one of those individuals that latched on like a leech, and you gave me your number, and I was like, oh yeah, it's going down in the DMs. And so I just reached out profusely, and we were both at some busy times in our life, but our paths ultimately ended up connecting. You invited me to a workshop.
Yeah.
Just the speaker launch pad. And basically you provided a workshop to a small group of individuals and outlined all the things that you have done in your speaking career that have helped lead to some of your success.
Right.
And it went from not only facilitation skills, but how do you pack lightly and how do you get through TSA in a timely manner.
Dude, people love that. They love those tips about how do I pack my bag and what's my rig look like and all that. I was blown away. I didn't think there was that big a desire to know that information.
Well, personality styles. I mean, I think that the individuals that are super organized and connect with details, they're like, that's the stuff I want. Yeah. For me, I was like, I don't care about that. Yeah. I'll go with nothing at all, just the clothes on my back, this stick and this little bandana,
I'll buy a bow tie when I get there.
That's exactly right. Thank you. But the stuff that really connected with me is like, how do I take all these ideas in my head? Yeah. Because I think I have content for days.
Totally.
And how do I put it in a form that people will benefit from?
Right.
How do I take all of these things and help others bring more joy, fun, and fulfillment in their life? And I went through this workshop and I was rejuvenated. I was excited. I was like, yes, I got it. I got the road map. And then I fell flat on my face. Yeah. And I didn't do anything with it. And I was so frustrated that I felt like I had all these things to do, but I didn't know what to do first. And I felt as though I didn't have a support mechanism. And ultimately, it led me to a more frustrated place in my life. But things happen as and when they should, right? And so fast forward, how long ago was that?
Oh my gosh.
5 years?
I don't think it was quite that long. I think it may have been 4.
Okay.
Probably 4 years.
I just don't know if it was before my second stint at Farmers Insurance or not. But nevertheless, what ended up happening is all of a sudden it clicked.
Yeah.
Because now I figured it out.
Right.
Self-discovery.
Right.
Like, it wasn't the workshop. It wasn't you telling me what to do. And you asked a ton of great questions like you always do, but I wasn't ready to receive that stuff.
I think you finally figured out what your message was, though.
That's exactly right.
Like, you knew it was around this topic. Because
Yes.
everyone's like, you're the fun guy, you're the catsuit guy, you're
Yes.
crazy, everyone wants to be in your energy. But it wasn't until you formulated what the message was
That's
that
exactly
this became
right.
solid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and we've talked about this before. I think sometimes I've battled in my life and my career. Like, fun doesn't always have the most positive connotation, especially in work.
Right.
And so one of the things that I've struggled with in getting speaking gigs is people will hear my concept and they'll be like, oh, I don't know.
I don't know if that'll work in our place.
That's exactly right. Well,
we don't like fun in our work environment.
ultimately performance is going to suffer because if they're having fun, then they're not going to work
Yeah.
as hard, right?
So, I mean, Paul, Nerf guns at work, please.
Please, come on, get over it. But you helped me identify that, and the reason why I say you helped me identify is because once I feel like I landed on my message, you're the first person I called, and you picked up the phone and we worked through it. And I honestly don't think that there's a number of things that have gotten me to my career today, but I don't think that I would be sitting here today if it wasn't for you. I know that for 100% fact because I'm sitting in your house.
You're in my house, yeah.
But you are a highly influential gentleman,
Thanks,
and you
bud.
do it the right way. So I say all that to preface this question. What do you do?
What do I do? So what I like to do is I inspire. I went through this thing not too long ago, and it was all about, like, why do you exist? And my answer was, I exist to inspire freedom through curiosity, love, and joy. And so the way I do that is I speak about financial education. That's kind of I have 2 loves. I love financial literacy, financial education, particularly to the people who don't have it or who haven't had it. And then I also love culture. I'm a student, as you are. I'm a student of human behavior. Mm-hmm. And I love going into an organization and figuring out, why are things not functioning the way they should? Because there's all these great people here. They're not communicating well.
Right.
Or they don't understand that this person makes decisions differently than this person. And we just need to clear that up, right? So I love both of those. I am an author, I'm a speaker, I'm a consultant, I'm a coach. The way that I tell other people what I do, it's like, I'm an entrepreneur. I do a little bit of a lot.
That's true.
But I do that because I love variety in my life, and I'm a creator. So I've written 3 books. I've got a documentary on the student loan debt epidemic called Broke, Busted, and Disgusted that was sold to CNBC.
Bragger.
Sorry, I thought you wanted me to list them all.
Oh, no, I do, actually.
okay.
I want to hear them all.
I've done 2 TEDx events. So
one of which has got 3 million views.
Plus, yeah, it's crazy.
3 million views, and is featured on the TEDx website, right?
TED.com
Oh,
website.
my apologies.
Not TEDx.
Do
Come
you
on.
know what I've had 3 million of in my life? 0. Nothing.
Well, I thought you were going to say Oreo cookies or something like that.
Not even close. I mean, I eat a lot
Krispy Kreme donuts.
First of all, never say Oreo without prefacing it with double stuff.
Double stuff Oreos.
Who eats Oreos? Animals? Seriously. I mean, what am I? Double stuff or go home.
Yes.
But 3 million, like, I was so proud of you.
Thanks, dude.
But like, just a step back, like, I feel it was just 6 months ago when it was 1 million. And so it just blew up.
It rocketed.
So, tell us about the premise of that video, because it's super cool, because you said earlier that you love games.
Games, yep.
And I do want to say, you're a financial expert. In that space, you are an expert of financial planning and helping folks that don't necessarily have a lot of guidance in that realm, getting in a better position. And I want to do another podcast with you that's geared more towards finance.
Cool,
because
yeah,
I think that's
totally.
one of the biggest stressors of anybody in life is money.
No doubt.
But this is just kind of to break the ice, who you are, what you do, all that fun stuff. We could talk for days, as I'm sure you're aware. But you love games, and you like to make things fun. And so the purpose of your TEDx talk was, or TED Talk was, what?
It was playing a game of Monopoly with my kids with real cash. And you have to understand the reason behind it was we were playing one Saturday morning, and my kids, they're prone to play like these marathon games of Monopoly that last hours and hours over days and days of play. And I'm sitting there one day, playing with them, and I was listening to their banter, and I was watching them make decisions, getting a feel for how they were making decisions. But they were doing things like buying each other out of jail. And
been there before.
Yeah.
Shout out to Mom.
I remember 2004. It was Paul's dark period.
Dude, I went to jail before.
Did you?
Yeah.
What for?
I got into a bar scuffle.
Oh, yeah.
I was actually the only sober individual, and it was one of my best buds at the time.
Yeah.
And he had been drinking a little bit, was getting pummeled by a bouncer that was half of his size. And I went over to get this gentleman was 6'6", 270 pounds, the guy, my friend, college athlete.
Yeah.
So I went and I pulled the bouncer off of him. Well, the bouncer wasn't getting off of him, and so I had to, throw a couple blows, right?
Yeah.
Do you see how great of a fighter I am?
Yeah.
In fairness, that's my left. Like, I don't
do
do anything lefty.
Did you keep your wrist flexible
I did. I was like, ugh! and so ultimately, the guy got up, and we went a couple of rounds, and next thing I know, I got tackled from behind by a police officer, and I ended up going to jail, and no charges were pressed. This was in college. I was the hooligan.
But you were in the slammer.
I was in the slammer.
Nice.
That's where I learned to rap.
Yeah.
And you think I'm joking, but I'm serious. Like, it was a pretty cool experience.
Was it?
Perspective, right?
Yeah.
You never know.
Was the toilet out in the open?
I don't. It was just a local city jail. I don't remember. It was so long ago.
Yeah. You didn't stack chairs around it or anything to go?
No. I did. I was like, hey, tell me about your problems, bro. I'm like, let's hash this out.
Nice.
So anyway, to make a short story long, I'm completely unrelated to your story. I'm sitting here just bogarting your mic time.
Yeah. Oh, you want me to continue?
Yeah, sorry about that.
May I?
But I was in jail. Does that not, they were like, hey, how do you check these guns at the...
Yeah.
And I said, I don't.
Right.
They're just with me.
You should do a TED Talk about that.
I should.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of TED Talk.
My 6 hours in jail by Paul.
Buying people out of jail is what your kids do.
So they were buying people out of jail and buying each other out of jail. And I said, that's not a thing. You can't do that. And they were like, oh, it's fine. We just want her on the board with us. And I said, no, I get that. And I appreciated the socialistic nature at which they were playing, right? But I'm like, this is why our games take 3 days. And so I started thinking about, I wonder if they're playing this way because the money isn't real. And so I went to my credit union on Friday afternoon and I pulled out $9,990 in cash for my home equity line of credit in all the denominations.
That.
Yeah. Well, I have people online on the TED Talk.
Yeah. Must be nice.
They're saying things like, oh, this is how the 1% lives.
Yeah.
Yeah, Paul, look around.
Yeah.
1%.
Yeah, I get it.
Here. Yeah.
I get it.
So anyway, I pulled money out. I went home and we played a high stakes game of Monopoly with cash. And it totally changed the way my kids played. And so the result of that was an allowance program that we installed in our house and a process through which our kids get money on a weekly basis, but then everything they buy is on them. So we will do food and clothing and that kind of stuff. But if they want snacks, if they want to go get ice cream, they want donuts on Sunday, they want to go to a game with their friends or go to the bounce park or whatever, they're paying for that. Mm. And if they get invited to a birthday party, they pay for 50% of that gift for their friend.
Oh, that's cool.
And so what we realized was that, and you know this as well as anybody, when you were a kid, you would gladly spend your parents' money.
All the time.
But
I still do.
Hold on to you. Still do.
I'll spend yours if you let. Yeah. Speaking of which, it's about lunchtime.
We should go spend my money.
Yeah.
But my kids are very reluctant to spend their own money.
I can see that.
And what has happened in society is we began to conflate love and struggle. Mm. So like we say, oh, I love my kids, therefore I don't want them to struggle. And in reality, if you love your kids, then you should want them to struggle. They need to know limits. They need to know boundaries around money and video game time and those kinds of things.
Yes.
Because if there are no boundaries set, they think the sky's the limit on everything. And that's how this is where the Broke, Busted, and Disgusted documentary came out. This is where we get college students who have 60, 80, $100,000 in student loans and another 10 grand to boot in credit card debt because they never knew there were boundaries. They never had them.
Yeah, I was one of those guys. And that's something that you're going to talk with me about later this afternoon, right?
Yeah, over lunch.
So I'm in a much better space now, obviously, but it took a lot of hard learned lessons that I had to learn on my own and didn't have a father figure that taught them to me. So, well, with respect to everybody's time, it's been 45 of the fastest minutes ever. I could sit here and talk to you forever. But one of the things that I really wanted to leave folks with is you're an individual, like we use that app Voxer.
Yes.
It's like a walkie-talkie app. And every now and again I'll just get this random voicemail or Vox where you're singing me a song, or I'll call you and we'll just automatically go into this improv riff, which is just amazingly fun.
It is fun, isn't it?
So what types of things, how do you bring more fun to other, like what can folks do that would just be fun and create that environment for others and themselves?
Yeah. The thing about you in particular is you're so receptive to it, right? So, and I've got a bunch of friends who are like that. A good friend of mine, shout out to Mark Charter of Charter House Real Estate here in Des Moines.
Love you, Mark. Can't wait to meet you, brother.
Yeah, he'd be a good interview for you. Mark
would be a good interview to you.
Mark sent me a video one day, and it was him singing to a Billy Joel song in his car, and he's like, "All right, karaoke tag, you're it," and I had to finish the song that he was singing.
Awesome.
And I'm like, that was so cool just to get that and to throw it back and forth. I think the suggestion I have to bring more fun into people's lives is do something completely out of the ordinary on a regular basis. And so in my house, the other night, in fact, my daughter and I were just hanging out, and I put on, we have a Sonos wireless speaker in our kitchen, and I turned on the Queen channel because we had gone and seen.
I don't even know what that is.
Bohemian Rhapsody.
Oh,
Queen, the
okay,
band.
Gotcha.
So it's songs that are in that genre, right? But we did kitchen karaoke. I was like, Piper, come join me for kitchen karaoke. We sang in the kitchen to all the songs that were on that channel for about 25 or 30 minutes.
That's awesome.
And at the end of the night, she's like, Dad, that was so much fun doing kitchen karaoke.
Right.
We didn't do that more often. I was like, totally.
Yes.
My son's now at a school where he has to leave fairly early. But when both of them were home early, we would have Tuesday and Thursday dance parties in the morning.
We did that same thing, Hall & Oates dance party Fridays.
Yeah. Only my playlist was like Kesha and 50 Cent and
you went hard.
It was into club kind of stuff.
Yeah.
In hindsight, I probably shouldn't have gone as hard to the club, but whatever. Boys are going to rage.
Providing a well-rounded perspective of culture.
That's right.
So you're a man of intent, and that's what I appreciate about you. So what I got from that is be willing to sing some karaoke songs. Go have a dance party. Say something that's completely off the cuff and out of the norm where somebody's going to look at you and say, who the hell are you?
Did you just say that?
Did you just say that?
Yeah, I told you right before we started that like ladies spend lots of time on their fingernails, and I've seen some that have these like down to a sharpened point,
right? Yeah.
And I think you must either be a guitar player, or into like scratching people or something. I was gonna go.
That was a really struggle.
I was gonna go somewhere else. But I would say to them things like, "That would make it hard to pick your nose, wouldn't it?"
Yeah.
And they're startled, but then they laugh.
Right.
And I'm like, I'm just joking. I will give strangers high fives because why not?
Yes.
And some people are like, what was that all about? Who cares?
Sure.
Was the interaction with you memorable?
Yep.
If it was, and it brought a smile to someone's face,
yes.
Game on.
So as I'm hearing you talk, I have a couple of avid listeners that are related to me. Dylan, Jay, I love you guys.
What up, Dylan?
My cousin Jay, he's sitting here listening to this right now. He's, I would never do that. Do it. There's many of you guys or gals right now listen to this podcast say, that's outside of my comfort. I'm not that guy. I'm not that gal. Do something different. That's the whole point. You'd be amazed at the amount of growth and fun you could have if you just get outside of the ordinary and do something different. So,
can I make one statement?
Yeah.
I read a survey or a statistic the other day. It said that the average 40-year-old man has 0.7 friends, 0.7, that does not even live in the same state.
0.7 friends that don't even live in the same state.
Meaning that most 40-year-olds in America today, men especially, most of them are alone. They don't have connection. They don't have someone they can confide in. They don't have someone they can, connect with ultimately.
Right.
And I feel very fortunate. I have a lot of really, great friends that I can connect with and talk to. You being one of them.
There's more than me?
Well, there's a couple.
Okay.
But you're at the top.
But only one.
You're at the top, honey. And I think that what this does, this high-fiving people and commenting, it creates connection.
Yes.
And that's ultimately that is what we are supposed to be doing, is connecting with one another as human beings.
Agreed.
And so if we can do it, like high fives, if you're a germaphobe and you can't do it, knuckle bash.
Yeah.
Give them a Howie Mandel, you know what I mean?
Yeah, a little foot five, right? With the shoe on.
Totally. Elbow bash, whatever, it doesn't matter.
But Mark McGuire and Jose Canseco style. So be a giver of joy.
Be a giver of joy.
Create experiences for others.
Yeah.
Ask folks what the best thing that's happened to them today, or give me some positive things that you're looking at this negative experience as. Do things out of the ordinary. And if you do all of these things, I speak for Adam when I say, in combination with me, that we promise you will have more fun, joy, and fulfillment in life. So Adam, again, you've played a huge role in my life. As we close this out, if somebody wants to learn more about you and potentially be impacted as I have, where do they go?
It's very simple. If you want more info on Adam, go to adamcarroll.info.
Oh, adamcarroll.info.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
adamcarroll.info. All of my properties and sites and audios and videos, all of it's there.
Awesome.
adamcarroll.info.
You'll also find him on the TED.com homepage.
Yes, you can.
And just for clarity, it's Adam Carroll with 2 R's and 2 L's, but only 1 O.
1 O.
There's not only a, but hey, as always, we thank you for tuning in. Fundamism, bringing more fun, joy, and fulfillment in your life through the fundamentals of a fun and optimistic lifestyle. Thank you very much. Challenge yourself to do something different today. Go bring more fun to not only your life, but to the life of others. And happy holidays.
Paul, that was fun.
You're fun. That was awesome. Dude, that was 51 minutes. So crazy.
It goes so fast.
So fast.
I think about the Mike and Mike show.
Yeah.
You and I could do that, a riff on stuff for 2 hours.
Dude, I'm on the morning show for 4 hours in Kansas City, 610 every now and again. I'll look up at the clock and I'll be like, how? Right. And I'm not even in control of those discussions. I'm just a throw-in, but I'm having a blast. Yes. Dude, there are a million things that you and I could do. Speaking of which, did I tell you about this? I told you about this crazy dude that reached out to me about the consulting partnership, right?
Yes.
Did I tell you that he said something to the extent of,